Continuing our Baldur's Gate Tactica, in this vlog, we're going to look at two-weapon fighting. This is not the domain primarily of the fighter, but the possibility of all character classes that can equip two weapons. Now, essentially, if we look under the hood, the engine, the DNA that powers Baldur's Gate, that engine is the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition rule set. And in order to score a hit on a target, this assumes you have the ability to damage it in the first place. Just to sidebar for a moment with no spoilers, there are some encounters, there are some monsters that can only be harmed in specific circumstances, either with a specific magical weapon, +1, +2, or through certain effects. So under the assumption that your weapon can actually harm the encounter and the monster, it's a numbers game. We've got Thaco, the ability to hit armor class 0. That target has an armor class. We need to meet or beat that armor class to score a hit, and then we go to damage and other aspects. Essentially, when you run out of hit points, you win the encounter. That's the end. And you collect the loot, collect the quest. We're looking to deal, in theory, again, simplifying it, more damage quicker than we're receiving. Naturally, the target might have regeneration or damage reduction or pop off some healing pots, but likewise, we might have damage reduction, healing pots, and immunities. I want to get the target to 0 before I do. So the primary thing, the first thing is to score that hit. Yes, absolutely, damage is important. We want to get those big numbers up there, but we're going to look for a second and ask the question, just how big is damage with certain weapons, a two-handed sword, say with a short sword? Two different type of dice, 1d6 to 1d10, but is there a difference between scoring a 6 and scoring a 10 versus hits? So sidebarring back, what this means is every round, when it's my character's turn, I get to make an attack. Now, those numbers of attack are very, very important. In the beginning, it's just one attack. As you level up with certain character classes, you will be able to make more attacks. So naturally, some classes are going to be able to two-weapon fight better than others, but even the one where we're limited with the number of attacks and proficiencies, it's still vastly superior than a single weapon. But then we're giving up a little bit of armor class, and I did push up to the Baldur's Gate playlist here why armor class is important, and we got to kind of navigate that fine line. So I get a base number of attack. That attack will increase as I level up. By having a second weapon, I get a second attack. Now, in the beginning, this attack is not going to be very, very effective, and you're going to notice a lot of misses, because in the AD&D 2nd Edition rule set with weapon proficiencies, I am less proficient. There's going to be some negatives. Before I roll that D20 behind the scenes, there's negatives working against me. So on average, I'm going to have to roll much, much higher to score that average hit. I can balance out those negatives. That's the game that it becomes. Being able to use magic weapons with plus something, that's going to remove part of that negative modifier. Having strength bonuses or having other certain proficiencies, that is going to eventually remove that, scale that away, or at the very least, depending on the character class, make it a minimum. To gain an extra attack is massive, especially if it's a weapon with some other conditions like poison or other things operating. If I can carry two weapons, we're going to carry two weapons. Now, what if you can't carry two weapons? Well, to sidebar into that, if I can't dual wield, then certainly a two-handed weapon is going to do more damage, or I'm looking for the greatest damage weapon that I can. Even if weapon damage isn't my primary focus, sidebarring into that, if I'm playing a mage or perhaps a druid, obviously the focus is going to be the spells. Shapeshifter, I don't have to worry about the attack so much because I'm probably going to go werewolf form. But stock druid or avenger, I'm going to be slinging spells most of the time. If I have to fall back to my weapons, then I want to be able to do the most damage I can because I'm only going to have that one weapon. Now, in terms of hitting, with these negatives, with these penalties against us, even as we kind of square them out, where two-weapon fighting becomes very, very powerful, where dual wield becomes very powerful, At the higher levels of the game with no spoilers, you're going to be fighting stuff that's very, very jacked up armor class. As it is, you're going to have to roll really, really well to hit. The more times you roll a d20, the greater the chance of scoring that high number and scoring that hit. Having two weapons to attack just increases that. You're going to deal more damage over time. This is going back to like a short sword versus a long sword or a two-handed weapon. You're going to deal more damage over time by having more attacks. Because again, this idea in AD&D second edition rule set, you got to score the hit first. Then we go to damage. Then we remove hit points with any modifiers for damage reduction or regeneration. Scoring the hit is so important. So dual wield, two-hand weapons in each hand, absolutely with what we want to push forward. Now, of course, there's a lot of different ways to build things. What you are sacrificing, depending on the character class, you're giving up a shield. So that can be a significant point, 2 or 3, plus effects that you're not going to get. You've got to kind of take that reduction in armor class versus being able to deal more attacks. But at the higher levels, I'm not saying armor class isn't important because I pushed up that Tactica to the playlist here, the BG playlist. But at the higher levels, when we get into, with no spoilers, BG2 and Throne, things are going to be hitting you like mad anyway. I want to end the fight as quickly as possible, and they've already got a crazy, crazy armor class. So dealing more attacks, more damage consistently, that possibility, embracing that random of the D20, I generally want to go with that. But we're talking about a meta here. We're talking about an optimal way to build your character, as opposed to maybe you want to play something different. Maybe you want to go two-handed weapons. Maybe you want to go sword and board or axe and shield, looking at those aspects. The next piece and final piece, of course, is clickies, haste, being able to generate even more attacks per turn by speeding you up, and certain effects to deal from that perspective. So this exploration, this idea of generating more attacks as quickly as possible, taking out the modifiers, lowering them as best we can with strength bonuses, magic weapons, weapon proficiencies, and from there, bringing it to 0, or at least a -1 or a -2, and pushing those attacks forward. Now, certainly some character classes might want to play it for the flair. Maybe it is part of your character build where you're like, look, I've got this idea for a character, and they dual wield, they fight with a weapon in each hand. That's one way to build. But again, we're looking at just the meta right now. We're looking at the most optimal, crunching the numbers behind the scenes. What are we doing? There are lots of ways to play and lots of ways to explore the game.